According to a report by Gun Free South Africa, gun violence is the leading cause of murder in South Africa. In 2022, 30 people were murdered by gunshots in South Africa every day between the 1st of April and 30th of June 2022, which is up from the 23 killed in 2020 over the same period. And let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Thembisa Fakude, who's a senior researcher fellow at the Africa-Asia Dialogues. Very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I mean, let's start off, with your reaction this afternoon. I mean, of course, we know that gun violence has been on the increase. Certainly, it shows a lot more when someone in the public eye has been shot dead in this way. What would you say is the biggest driver of gun violence in South Africa?
Well, just before we joined this interview, there was another report of another high-profile leader in KZN, Chief Ndaba from Esco was killed from Ntabamhlophe region. So it's quite troubling. There are a number of factors, of course, as far as I can see, where I said that is encouraging or has led to the situation we find ourselves. One, you have about 9,000 guns that are annually reported to either have been stolen or missing. So we don't know where those guns are. The other factor, which is very important, you have a lot of unregistered illegal persons in South Africa who we have no track of who they are, where they come from, what are they here to do. So that also adds to the complication that we find ourselves. But there's also South Africa is increasingly becoming a place for organized crime. And this comes, of course, with the relative economic success and potential that South Africa has. And as a result, is attracting these international syndicates in this country. But having said that, I think we need to start having another parallel discussion in this regard. Yeah. There is certainly and clearly, given the number of mass shootings and killings that we've seen over the past couple of months, that there is actually terrorism against the people of South Africa and against the state in this country. And that's a discussion that I think we need to start looking at and really entertaining in terms of discussing.
I mean, you talk about Chief Ndaba being shot dead, and obviously that's news that just came in earlier. And while we're on the topic of high-profile murders, it does seem as though these criminals are becoming a little bit more brazen. And I wonder if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at things like drive-by shootings. We're looking at these mass shootings, what we experienced last year, many of those Shebeen shootings that we saw, and these sort of murders that we're seeing of late. And in fact, I think it's 3 artists in just a short space of time who'd been shot dead. What is causing this sort of brazen attitude? Because I would imagine that, you being brazen is an idea that you won't be held accountable, that there is some sort of protection of criminals of sorts. I mean, there's something obviously linked to the fact that there is this brazen attitude.
I wish you could answer a question, and if I was a security expert or analyst, I would have done so. But I think there is an element of lawlessness in this country. There's no doubt about it. People are doing as they please. There's land invasions that are taking place, drive-by shootings. Almost every weekend we have this. And I'm just hopeful that, those that are tasked with the responsibility of protecting us are not sleeping on the job, particularly when it comes to crime intelligence. In this country, because what continues to happen from the time of a Nyobeni incident where young kids were poisoned, we're still waiting for those answers on what caused that and who committed that crime. We know that the owner of the tavern is in courts at the moment, but that's low-hanging suspect, whether the people who actually perpetrated those crimes are still to face justice. So I think there is an element of lawlessness in this country, and it's just a collapse of respect of the law and the collapse of humanity. We see that happening over and over and again. So one wonders what will stop this. And as I said, I hope those that are tasked with this responsibility are not sleeping on the job, because these things continue. We see videos on social media consistently of people shooting and hijacking without any sense of consequence.
Mr. Fakude, South Africa already has relatively strict gun laws, firearms control legislation. And, whenever the topic of guns comes about, one has to look at what's happening in the US, where it seems as though, the authorities have lost control in that particular battle of gun violence. We were talking to Gun Free South Africa, I think about a week ago, and one of the things that they highlighted was the fact that it's the implementation of these laws that's actually a problem. And another problem on top of that is the fact that you find a lot of corruption where, for example, guns that are to be used in investigations as evidence or exhibits sort of go missing. They disappear from police custody. How much of a problem is that? I mean, in the observations you've made about, gun violence and what's happening in the country, obviously there's a lot of issues that interlink here, but has that been a major problem that has been highlighted? Certainly, Gun Free South Africa has raised this particular issue.
I mean, there's truth in what has been said, and particularly the challenges that are faced by or raised by Gun Free South Africa. But there are a lot of, we are putting bandage solutions to much more deeper problems in this country, including some of the solutions suggested by Gun Free South Africa. Those are all bandage solutions. So you need to look at what are the causes of this brazenness, what are the causes of this lawlessness, why are we in this situation in South Africa? And people have argued and come up with a lot of arguments in terms of why we are where we are at the moment. One of the colleague that I had a discussion with the other day was, the suspension of religion in schools, for example, where people or human beings are basically made. Conscientization takes place at that level of education. The collapse of a family, it's another story. The economic situation that we find ourselves, where people are susceptible to all sorts of proposals, including by crime syndicates in this country and those that seek to continue creating instability in this country. I mean, I'm of the view that we have a lot of shooters for hire at the moment, and those people are hired by, amongst others, people who want to see instability in South Africa, because it just simply doesn't make sense that you have people driving around and shooting people, not robbing them, as it expected in this kind of incidences. They just shoot and they drive past. What's the purpose of that? The purpose of that is clearly to create some sort of instability. So there are a lot of issues that we need to look at as South Africans. And I do appreciate that people are quick to, agitate towards the bandage solutions of taking away guns, but you need to deal with a human being here. We need to deal with the root causes of why people are so susceptible to the kind of situations.
Mr. Fakude, thank you very much for giving us your time and, of course, weighing in on this issue. Thembisa Fakude is a senior research fellow at the Africa-Asia Dialogues there.